Good morning. My name is Eric Bergman with the Department of Local Affairs, Division of Local Government. Welcome to our DOLA Local Government Resource Call. I'm actually coming to you today live from Ouray, Colorado, down here for some meetings with our regional managers and just absolutely loving this state. So as you're aware, this bi-monthly call continues to serve our local communities by providing an access point to DOLA and partner agencies and providing timely and relevant updates and resources to support local government operations. This call originated during the COVID pandemic to address the uncertainty, misinformation, and impacts it created, and to serve as a space to share information that is available. We are once again experiencing a period of rapid transition and uncertainty at the federal level, with funding impacts that can make it difficult for local governments to budget and plan. The state of Colorado and DOLA are committed to supporting our local government partners as federal policies and legal challenges continue to evolve. DOLA and the Governor's Office of Federal Funding and Strategic Initiatives conducted two calls, one for municipalities and counties in February and one for special districts in March. These included updates on the federal executive orders, status of legal challenges to those orders, and an opportunity for local governments to share what they are hearing and experiencing. As we continue getting requests from local government representatives for more information, this call provides an ongoing opportunity to provide these updates when any are available. We have a very busy agenda for today. I will begin by providing some general DOLA updates, and then we'll hear from the Colorado Resiliency Office and the Colorado Energy Office on some respective programs they'd like to tell you about. Next up, we'll have Todd Leopold, our DOLA Regional Manager for the Central Region. We'll be presenting on our new Civic Solutions Hub, a brand new initiative from the Division of Local Government that will tie technology, collaboration, and innovation to increase your community's operational capacity. Finally, we'll get into updates from the federal level, plus an overview of the state budget and what it means for our programs here at the state level. Eric Ruth from OFC, that's the Governor's Office of Federal Funds and Strategic Initiatives, will provide a brief update of what's happening at the federal level. Then the Colorado Energy Office and the Colorado Department of Transportation will each present on state budget impacts to their agencies and their relevance to local governments. And finally, I'll dive into the impacts of the state budget to DOLA programs specifically. You are welcome to put questions in the chat or the Q&A feature as we go along. And any questions that we don't get answered today, we will have our subject matter experts capture them and get back to you following the call. Now, let's get into some general DOLA and partner agency updates. I'll begin with our state demography office. While Colorado is still one of the youngest states in the country, its population of older adults is increasing rapidly. Based on the American Community Survey, the percentage of Colorado's population aged 60 and older increased from 13% in 2005 to 22% in 2023, and is expected to grow from over 1.3 to 1.5 million in 2030. You can see the full article on SDO's Crosstabs page. The 2024 American Community Survey data release schedule has been published, with the first set of estimates scheduled for September. The State Demography Office will update its ACS resources beginning in December 2025 after the release of the 2020 to 2024 ACS 5-year estimates. Next up, Division of Housing. We are excited to announce DOH's funding rounds for grants and loans through June 30th, 2026. The Division of Housing anticipates awarding approximately $140 million in project and program funding during state fiscal year 26. That is the fiscal year that begins July 1st of 25 and then runs until June 30th of 26. To publish application dates for the full fiscal year and facilitate prospective applicants' planning, we identified likely funding ranges in the application calendar. Funding is subject to adjustment based on federal awards and vendor fee receipts. Updates on additional funding will be provided via the DOH newsletter and include information in existing application cycles or announced as new funding rounds depending on the funding type. You can learn more about the application process on DOH's funding applications page. DOH is piloting 2 new initiatives in the upcoming fiscal year. The first is dedicated funding for pre-applications to support developers applying for the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority, that's CHAPA, for federal and state housing tax credits. See below for more details. The second is a notice of funding availability for home ownership development in August. This Notice of funding availability is for scattered site homeownership programs and will provide funding for the development of homeownership opportunities across the state. On a sad note, after 15 years of dedicated service, Allison George, the Department of Affairs Division of Housing Director, has announced her retirement effective October 15th, 2025. Allison's work and commitment have significantly impacted the state's housing landscape, creating or preserving almost 20,000 affordable units, over 2,500 homeownership units, and supporting more than 64,000 Coloradans with emergency housing assistance since state fiscal year 2021, and thousands more Coloradans during her tenure. DOLA will be posting the position of Division of Housing Director in the coming weeks to ensure a smooth transition and continued excellence at DOLA's Division of Housing. We wish her well. She is a dear friend and she has done so much for this state. The department will be actively recruiting for the position, and all qualified candidates are encouraged to apply. The position will be posted this summer, and the job announcement and application will be found on DOLA's career page. Moving now to the Division of Local Government. The division now offers an incentive program for local governments who have opted into Prop 123 to reward early adoption of fast-track review policies, setting aside $2 million of funding. Local governments that adopt a Proposition 123 compliant expedited development review process by December 31st, 2025 will receive up to $50,000 in grant funding with no local match requirement. Local planning capacity grant funds will be awarded and must be spent on eligible planning activities. Jurisdictions that adopt between January 1st and June 30th, 2026 will be eligible for incentive awards. Awards will be less than $50,000 as funds remain available. For our 2024 land use and housing laws implementation updates, we continue to be focused on implementing the bills we were tasked to implement by the General Assembly. We know that local governments have been asking for months what enforcement might look like for non-compliance. While first and foremost, we want to thank all the local governments that have been working towards more housing for many years and in so many ways, and are following our state laws or are working in good faith to comply to help meet our cumulative housing needs. As you probably know, Governor Polis signed an executive order last Friday providing new guidance for the agencies responsible for implementation and for local governments themselves. For DOLA, we are still focused on implementing state laws and doing whatever we can to support locals to come into compliance. We know there are challenges and obstacles when it comes to this work, and we're grateful that many local governments have dedicated time and resources to work with our state agencies to refine guidance and tools, share lessons learned and effective approaches, and generally work together toward compliance. Please continue to use DOLA as a resource to meet our shared housing, climate, and transportation goals, work towards following the 7 state laws cited in the executive order, as we know these are important pieces in the larger housing puzzle. As always, we sincerely appreciate your partnership. Local governments working to implement the 2024 land use and housing legislation can now submit all required information electronically through the brand new Land Use and Housing Implementation Portal. Representatives of subject jurisdictions should have received a notification regarding new account setup. Those who have not received an email or are experiencing any issues while interacting with the portal may fill out an assistance form. Link will be provided in the chat, or you may contact, it's an email address, DOLA_LUHIP@state.co.us for any inquiries or assistance. In addition, the second round of the Housing Planning Grant Program opens June 9th and closes July 11th. This program offers grant funds to support housing needs assessments, housing action plans, and comprehensive plan elements, specifically strategic growth and water supply elements that were featured in Senate Bill 174. Program guidelines, application materials, and other relevant information is available on the program website, and interested applicants should email Program Manager Ashley Basham to discuss your project. We know that getting building plans reviewed and approved can be costly and take months, so we're testing AI technology to speed up this process while maintaining safety and quality standards. DOLA will be partnering with Archistar, funded by Gary Community Ventures, to launch a pilot for AI plan reviews. We're going to be the first state agency in the nation to do this. This 3-month pilot aims to reduce the time it takes to process a plan review and lower costs for developers and re-reviews. We are leveraging local planning capacity, grant dollars in collaboration with the City of Greeley to explore an AI pilot project focused on lowering permit review times. Also, the Community Development Office just launched the 2025 Land Use Survey. This survey is administered every 5 years to assess the planning needs and trends across our state. The responses to the survey will be used to inform funding decisions, direct services, aid local planners with planning research, and inform legislators and other policy leaders about all the planning work being done by local governments. Results will not be used to assess the compliance of a jurisdiction with 2024 and 2025 land use and housing laws. For questions about the survey, please reach out to CDL Planning and Research Analyst Emma Sheets. The Community Development Office is also standing up a new grant program for municipalities, counties, and tribal governments to fund land use and program planning work that makes it easier to build child care centers in your communities. Please email Andy Hill if you're interested in this program so we can learn more about your needs and how best to support your work. Launch is expected as early as July. You can find the Child Care Facility Development Toolkit on our website. The Colorado Resiliency Office has officially kicked off the 2025 Colorado Resiliency Framework Update. We will soon be releasing opportunities to engage in this planning process, such as summits and other events throughout the summer. Stay tuned for more information. And now I'll hand it over to Marguerite Harden of the Colorado Resiliency Office about the recently released guidance for local government climate adaptation. Marguerite, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Eric. I believe I have another slide, Veronica. Maybe not. Great. Well, I'm excited to say that, there we go. I'm excited to say that we just recently launched this guidance for thinking about how local governments can adapt to climate change. We know that we need to mitigate climate change or reduce the greenhouse gases, which we'll be talking about later in this call. But we also know that local communities are already experiencing the impacts of more extreme and frequent weather events such as flooding, drought, extreme heat, and wildfire. So we have crafted this guidance in partnership with the Climate Preparedness Office at the state, as well as all of our other state agencies working on climate. And we've also shared this with local governments in the process of developing these actions. So there's now 28 actions that we have developed that are really succinct and accessible for Colorado communities. Climate adaptation is a very local issue, depending on what impacts are being felt at the local scale. And so we really want to provide technical assistance and support for all of our local governments that are interested in advancing this important work. So if we advance to the next slide, you can see that our 28 actions are listed here on our website in this Google Sheet. And here's an example of one action and what that looks like. These actions can start at any level for any local government just starting out in climate adaptation or advancing some really deep work that they've already started. So there's planning and assessment, policy and implementation actions. And again, we're really excited to offer our support for this. So I will drop my email into the chat, and please feel free to reach out if you'd like any technical assistance in navigating this guidance or doing any of the implementation. And with that, I will pass it over to Carlos on, I'm sorry, I'll pass it over to Todd.
Great.
Hey, sorry guys. We have a little bit of a break. It is Carlos.
No worries. Thank you. Can you all hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Carlos Tamayo, one of the program managers at the Colorado Energy Office, and I have Russ Sands, who's our director of the program. I'm going to briefly cover the Impact Accelerator program today, which is providing $50 million to support local government policy adoption in 4 sectors: building, transportation, land use, and waste. And the main goal of the program is to build local resilience and reduce emissions through transformative policy adoption, which extends beyond state requirements. And in terms of who's eligible to apply, looking at the local governments such as cities, counties, and or cohorts led by cities or counties. as well as Colorado's 2 federally recognized tribes. There are 2 ways to apply. The first one is strictly policy adoption funding, and the other one, number 2, is policy adoption with project funding, with the note that applicants cannot apply for project funding alone. There has to be a policy adoption funding first. On the left-hand side, there's a 2-pager, and Russ, if you're able to, if you can please share it in the chat box, which basically summarizes the program details. And as I mentioned at the beginning, there are 4 sectors covering this program. The first one is buildings, looking at policies that promote building and energy codes that exceed the forthcoming model low energy and carbon code. And when it comes to land use, looking at policies that promote compact housing, parking management, EV charging, renewable energy, and discourage greenfield development. For transportation, looking at policies that encourage high-quality active transportation infrastructure, transit prioritization, transportation demand management, and fee-based vehicle registration incentives. And last but not least, for waste, looking at policies that increase waste diversion, promote reuse, and help convert refuse trucks into ZEVs. There's a handout available, same handout on the link that you see below. Also in this handout, you'll see information on the eligible costs. Briefly here, for policy funding, we're looking at stakeholder outreach activities, education, and facilitation, for example. Consultant support for technical analysis for policy development, studies that inform policy adoption, or small pilot projects, which generally projects that include construction, hiring staff, and long timelines will be less competitive, and we can touch on that. Project funding, in the same manner, we're looking at related equipment purchases, for example, rebate programs or reduced fee programs, consultant support for project implementation, studies that proceed or advance project implementation, larger pilot projects, excuse me, with the same caveat, and other incentives as well. So I'm going to show you 2 timelines here. The first one is for round 1, between June 16 and August 1st for the letter of intent submission. Those who are invited to apply for to submit their full application, the timeline is between October 1st and November 5th, and for awards to be announced on December 15th. In the same fashion for round 2, looking at the LOI submission between October 1st and November 17th of this year, submitting their full application, those who are encouraged to apply to submit between January 16th and February 18th, and for 2026, of course, and awards to be announced by April 6, 2026. I'm going to finish with this slide. Some important dates to remember. The guidance and FAQs will be published online June 2nd. Round 1 opens on June 16th, as I mentioned before. And some upcoming events are the launch webinar on June 17th and the Q&A session webinar on June 31st. With that, well, thanks for this space, and I'm going to share our contacts here in case you want to reach out. Thanks very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Marguerite. Appreciate you both. I am now proud to introduce Todd Leopold, our DOLA Regional Manager for the Central Region, to talk about the Division of Local Government's new Civic Solutions Hub. Todd, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Todd Leopold, Central Regional Manager. I'm here to really talk to you about a new initiative that we're rolling out through the Department of Local Government. And I wanted to talk about what we're calling our Civic Solutions Hub. This is designed to support local governments in both capacity building and in local operations and efficiencies, really looking at best practices not only throughout Colorado, but across the country. We are looking to facilitate those partnerships and letting DOLA assist local governments when they're not only evaluating new initiatives they want to do internally in their organization, but opportunities to identify ways that they can think creatively, utilizing either new technologies, AI tools, for example, or just new processes. We have a couple different opportunities to really build off of that. and want to speak to this regarding our pilots. We're going to be partners with jurisdictions that are interested in test piloting a couple areas. If you want to go to the next slide. Great. So the two areas I want to touch on today are some workshops. So part of our kickoff effort is really developing that culture of innovation in your organization. Some jurisdictions are doing a really good job in this space. Some are just wanting to tip their toe in the water, and some are just trying to get a basic foundation on how to build off of that. We have two workshops. These are free to local governments, cities, counties, special districts across the state that are interested in exploring this area. We have two different workshops that we're planning on doing this summer, both in August. So August 14th and 15th, we're going to be in Manitou Springs. They've been gracious enough to host us for this event. It's going to be a 2-day workshop. The other is the city of Montrose, another partner, and I just want to thank them for their opportunity and support, August 20th and through 21st. Again, these are free workshops. We're looking at team-based workshops, so between 2 and 5 members from your jurisdiction that want to participate. We encourage you to sign up. The QR code to the right of the screen will provide an opportunity for you to provide and register for these two events. The initial information will be provided, and then we'll reach out to you with logistics once you submitted. Due to space limitations, we are limited to a maximum of 15 jurisdictions at both locations, so a total of 30. And then based on the interest and success of these, we're going to build off of these into the future. So I encourage you to sign up early. The first 15 from each jurisdiction, Manitou Springs and Montrose, we'll be able to attend, and then we may have a waiting list depending on the interest level there. Next slide, please. And the other really exciting thing that I want to share with you is some pilot funding. So one of the areas that we really want to talk about not only is developing those cultures and helping support jurisdictions, but also providing funding and mechanisms in order to test out new ideas, new technologies in this operational space of an organization. So come fall of 2025, we're going to put out a notice of funding availability for jurisdictions to submit applications for funding requests. We're looking to fund approximately up to $50,000 for a project with a 25% match. More information is going to be coming on our website. Happy to have people reach out to myself or your individual regional manager around the state. The first focus area for the pilot's going to happen in the fall is going to be focus on workforce. We know that 60-70% of your overall budgetary spend in a jurisdiction, it comes down to staffing and people. So areas that we're looking at are ideas where you want to think creatively about working with your workforce in your organization, whether that's attraction, retention, succession planning, anything that touches your workforce and how to build a stronger, more resilient and innovative organization. We're willing to work with you to think outside the box. Our ultimate goal is to identify case studies where we can use that, where jurisdictions in the future want to explore these ideas. We'll have a repository for jurisdictions to provide feedback and input. So more to come in this space, but please reach out. We have a website dedicated to this. Next slide. And I just, again, there's a QR code, but just for reference, 8 different regional managers around the state. Based on the county you're located in, please reach out to your regional manager, and they'll be able to give you some more information. Thank you for the opportunity to talk today.
Thank you so much. We are very excited for this program to evolve and learn from the insights that develop as a result. Now we're going to turn to our funding and budget updates. We'll begin at the federal level with our good friend Tara Carruth from the governor's office to provide the latest on what we're hearing from the feds. Tara, take it away.
Thanks, Eric. Good morning, everyone. Veronica, you can move to the next slide. I want to provide an overview of some litigation updates that are impacting the state and the state's party to, and then some updates on reconciliation and federal budget updates. Can move to the next slide. So for litigation updates, you may be familiar with, there was the original OMB funding freeze. Colorado was party to that lawsuit. And there was a ruling that they could not freeze those funds through impoundment. And so those funds are currently active. We also had some funding that many of you may have heard of that came both through public health and behavioral health for the Department of Health and Human Services grant cancellations. We had a temporary restraining order, and then earlier this week did get a preliminary injunction. So those funds are currently accessible. We do expect the feds to appeal that decision, but as of right now, those funds are still available. Some other key litigation that is impacting the state or the state is party to, there are both FEMA and Department of Transportation are potentially tying up funds requiring states to do immigration enforcement, and so litigation is ongoing there. And then we are also challenging the reduction in funding to AmeriCorps program, as well as challenging tariffs. I put a couple of links here, and I know Veronica will send these slides out, but Just Security Litigation Tracker, they are tracking over 244 cases right now. You can look at these sites. There is the ability to filter based on topic, case name, or keyword searches. And so you can see the latest status of the ongoing litigation. You can also look at the Attorney General's website for Colorado. They're releasing a lot of press release and information on some of the active litigation. Next slide, Veronica. And for federal updates, first I wanted to share some of the observations that the state is, yes, we'll put the litigation trackers in the chat. So some observations that we are navigating. One, terms and conditions. So as we are receiving grant renewals, we're seeing quite a lot of terms and conditions that are not typical. And so just wanted to share that with our local partners. Be sure, this is not legal advice, but just as partners, encouraging everyone to really read those thoroughly before signing and consult with your legal teams if you have concerns. We are also seeing a substantial number of requests for payment justifications across different federal agencies. And so, for example, where before you could do a lump request for payment to one federal agency, some of those are having to be broken down by transaction and then getting kickbacks where you have to provide additional justification for your payment request. And those justifications come with language that says things like, failure to provide this justification could result in delayed or canceled funding. So just be sure to watch for those things. And then wanted to mention the FEMA Emergency Management Performance Grants. The Colorado Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management has issued a press release and held a town hall earlier this week. So some of the grants, we are not seeing them renew timely. and are anticipating potential cuts in those spaces. And so the state is going to be communicating when we are not seeing those renewals come through and what those impacts will be to local communities and partners. And then I'm sure you've all been tracking some of the news. Budget reconciliation at the federal level is underway. The reconciliation cuts include things like pretty significant cuts to Medicaid, around eligibility, around work requirements. Same with SNAP, or more commonly referred to as food stamps, and then also proposed cuts to energy grants, including weatherization, and some of the Inflation Reduction Act funding, both with Department of Energy and EPA. And then we are expecting appropriations to be coming later this summer, which will focus more on discretionary funding across all of the different committees. And that's all I had for updates today, but I'll put those links in the chat. And please, yeah, ask questions in the chat and we will work to get your responses.
Great. Tara, thank you so much. We're now going to turn to our state budget updates. Back in April, last month, the Governor Polis signed the long bill, which is the state's budget bill for the next year, which reconciled the $1.2 billion budget shortfall we were facing as we move into fiscal year 26. To do that, each agency had to endure some programmatic cuts. We've invited some of our agency partners to give a breakdown of what their budgets look like next year and what that means for our local government partners. First, I will introduce Russ Sands, Director of Local Government Climate Action from the Colorado Energy Office, to share what local governments can expect for fiscal year 26 from his agency. Russ, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Thanks. Well, hey everybody, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate all the great presentations. Good to see many of you that I know, and hello to those of you I don't. I think our Deputy Director Dominique Gomez was originally going to be presenting here, but we don't actually have too many updates as far as it goes with budget. As with everyone, I think kind of feeling that shared pain of the state budget, very excited that things have been resolved, at least for this year. And through that, I think we saw some of our, interest kind of funds being swept, but didn't actually result in any major or at least significant cuts to many of our programs. So very grateful for that, and continuing to monitor, and of course continuing to be team players with state and other issues. But for now, we do have a whole suite of funding opportunities at the state. I'll drop that in chat here when I'm done. And one of those is the accelerator program that you heard about from Carlos. We're really excited to get that off the ground. To the earlier presentation, that is an EPA funded grant. So in addition to the state budget, we've, like many of you, been wrestling with, just the federal uncertainty. Like many of you as well, I'm sure, kind of rode that wave of the initial freeze and then seeing what came back online. And then now really just kind of considering what is going to continue to be challenged. So far, our accelerator funding is a EPA grant for $50 million, is actually part of a larger $129 million climate pollution reduction grant that seems to be intact, and we are continuing to see good support from EPA and providing additional resources for it. So that's a hopeful sign, and we'd like to see that trend continue. But we are doing things to kind of try to mitigate risk, including just reminding people to apply for these grants, get the money, try to get it spent meaningfully in their communities and move things along, and bill us frequently. So that's some of our strategies for moving that forward. But we are really excited to get that off the ground. And I kind of think that's the bulk of it. I'll put in that link for all the other programs that we have to offer, and you can kind of see a lot of those are kind of ongoing. Some of those are coming from state funded sources, of course, a few of those from federal. Maybe some interesting things on the DOE side we'll see, but so far, even like the grant I'm managing for Department of Energy is still moving forward. So we will continue to learn and grow together, and appreciate the good work of AG and everybody that certainly sympathize with everybody that's had to face cuts on any level, and just appreciate all that we all do. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Russ, for being here. I'm going to now turn it to my good friend, Emily Hadaway at the Department of Transportation. She's their legislative liaison, and her and I worked together for many years in the General Assembly, side by side lobbying bills. Emily, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Eric. As Eric mentioned, my name is Emily Hadaway. I'm the legislative liaison for CDOT. I'm also joined today by Cassie Rudder, who is our director of the Office of Financial Management and Budget here at CDOT. I'm going to share my screen and go through the bills that we saw this year that impacted transportation funding. Perfect. So as has been mentioned, and I'm sure everyone's tracking, it was a very tight year on the state budget level, and transportation did not get out unscathed. There's definitely some significant hits to transportation funding. A lot of it is absorbed at the CDOT level. There are some local implications as well. So I'm going to go through each of those bills that had funding implications. The first one was SB 25-257. This was labeled Modified General Fund Transfers to the State Highway Fund. This was one that originated at CDOT. There were some different iterations at different times as far as where we could find our share of the cuts. This was kind of the go-to spot. In SB 21-260. It was contemplated that CDOT would receive $100 million for starting last year, FY25, going through FY32. And we just kind of knew that that was going to be kind of the easiest target for the JBC to look towards cuts since general fund was so tight this year. And so the reduction that we're seeing this year is 69 million and then 49.5 million next year. So that reduces the amount of general funds that we will be able to program into our 10-year plan process. It doesn't affect the amount of funding going to locals, but of course, those are projects that we work with local governments to plan. And we are in our process of revamping the next phase of the 10-year plan. That bill also eliminated the $7 million annual general fund transfers to the Revitalizing Main Streets program. That is a local grant program that no longer has a funding source, that was created in SB 21-260. Well, there was kind of some different iterations, but in 21-260, it was kind of made permanent through FY 2032. And so that $7 million has been eliminated, and that is our only funding source for the program. So we have paused applications for that program. We might do one more round to exhaust the funding we have in the cash fund, but we don't anticipate making awards into the future unless a new funding source is identified. So that was definitely a shame to see. That has been a very successful program in our mind, but that was one of the cuts that the JBC identified. The next bill is SB 25-258, temporarily reduced road safety surcharge. This was one we were really hoping the JBC wasn't going to move forward with. It was kind of a last minute decision. They kind of held it off to the very end and then had to go forward with the cut to make some room under the Tabor cap. So what the bill does is reduces the amount collected, the amount charged of the road safety surcharge. So that is a registration fee that is applied to all weight classes. So it reduces it by $3.70 starting in September 25 and for 2 years going into September 2027. The bill also changes the distribution. So that funding is allocated through the HUTF and typically goes to the normal distribution formula, as a portion going to CDOT, a portion going to cities, and a portion going to counties. It does update that distribution so that CDOT absorbs the majority of the cut. As you can see down here, I took this screenshot from the fiscal note. CDOT absorbs 11.1 million of the cut in FY 25-26, counties 4.4 million, and municipalities 0.1 million. So it doesn't completely hold cities and counties harmless, but as far as that general distribution, it's a pretty small impact, and that is an impact over 3 fiscal years because that starts in September 2025. The third bill is cash fund transfers to the general fund. This was kind of an omnibus bill that had a lot of different sweeps from different cash funds that were reallocated to the general fund. The biggest in that bill was a sweep of a portion of the multimodal options fund. This was also not a request that came from CDOT in our budget request, but we had a lot of discussions where different JBC members had kind of been eyeing the cash fund balance in, it was a lot larger than a lot of our other cash funds. And so they had a lot of questions throughout the budget process about that cash fund balance. And they decided to sweep $71.8 million from that multimodal options fund. We are working with TPRs and MPOs to determine, what the allocated cut will be for each TPR and MPO, and how we will work with each area to either push projects back into the future or cancel projects if needed, but hopefully they won't need to come to that. One kind of silver lining of that bill is that they did not choose to eliminate the $10.5 million general fund transfer that was also created in SB 21-260 to the multimodal options fund. And then also the multimodal options fund is funded by the retail delivery fee. So there is a continuous funding source to replenish that cash fund moving forward. So the actual, reduction this year is closer to $52 million because you have the 10 million from general fund and the retail delivery fee. But, we're working with implicated TPRs and MPOs to figure out how we can reduce the impacts as much as possible as far as those cuts. And then the final bill was SB 25-320. This came about kind of in the final last days of session. This accelerates the bridge and tunnel impact fee schedule that was created in SB 21-260 to generate additional funding for the bridge and tunnel enterprise. So that's about $28 million over 3 years. This is not funding for local governments, it's funding for CDOT, but we are hoping that will help kind of offset some of the cuts that we are absorbing from the faster safety reduction. It doesn't fully keep us whole by any means, but hopefully will help us from having to cancel cancel any projects. So that concludes my presentation, but happy to answer any questions when we get to the Q&A portion of the presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Cassie, for being here today. We appreciate you guys. And finally, we're going to move to our state budget updates from the budget cuts. For DLG specifically, the gray and black market marijuana enforcement program has been eliminated. The program will close out existing grants this year, and then the program will be discontinued following that. The other program of ours that took a hit was the Defense Council on First Appearance program, which subsidizes municipalities providing mandated defense counsel in their municipal courts. This program will not be funded for 2026. And then now moving on to our biggest program, Energy and Mineral Impact Assistance Fund, or EIIF as it's sometimes called. As you know, this program serves as a critical source of funding for public facility planning, construction, and services aimed at bolstering community and infrastructure and welfare. In this past year, in 2024, EIIF served 183 local governments who received $157 million in grant funding. Additionally, 322 local governments received almost $50 million in severance and federal mineral lease through direct distribution payments. Another of $1.6 million in federal mineral lease school distributions were awarded to 171 school districts. There is a great deal of uncertainty right now with regard to the near future of the Energy Impact Program. As you know, the Energy Impact Program is funded by severance tax, which is highly susceptible to fluctuations due to its dependence on market conditions for commodities such as oil, gas, and minerals, which pose long-term challenges for budget planning and resource allocation. Back in February, we announced that we'd be offering 2 energy mineral impact grant cycles instead of the usual 3 during the next fiscal year due to downward projections in severance tax revenue in the December revenue forecast. Since that time, there have been some significant developments and impacts to the state severance tax. In March of this year, the state issued a historically high ad valorem tax credit, totaling more than $110 million for oil and gas producers. And as a result, the severance tax revenue projection for DOLA was revised downwards by the state economists from our initial projection, which was over $100 million, down to just $1 million. Additionally, due to the continuing state budget shortfalls, another $43 million was diverted from the impact program to fund other critical state priorities. And next year, we'll see another $17 million diverted from our program to help fund the digital trunk radio system and the new schoolyards grant program. The combined factors of revenue volatility of the severance tax, state budget shortfall, record high ad valorem tax credits, and concerns over the fate of several federal grant programs all mean that DLG will not be able to offer another energy impact grant cycle in this calendar year. In addition, parts of House Bill 23-1272 went into effect this last year, which also modified how the ad valorem tax credit is calculated against the state severance tax. Now, if the severance tax revenues rebound this summer and fall as projected, the division may be able to offer a grant cycle of somewhere between 15 and 25 million in early 2026, but things could change due to a number of factors. Similarly, this revenue shortfall that we're experiencing with the severance tax will also have an impact on the direct distribution of severance tax to eligible communities this fall. We are working with our state partners and will continue to update local governments when we have more information as it becomes available. Finally, we have
In progress.
oh, hold on. We have one potential new funding grant program that was passed by the General Assembly that is currently on the governor's desk. This program, House Bill 25-1061, will be a new community schoolyard initiative utilizing energy impact dollars for schools to design and build interpretive parks and playgrounds and making those schoolyards accessible to the broader community outside of school hours. A total of $2 million will be available in fiscal years 26 and 27. We will be launching this program this fall, and we'll have more information coming soon. Veronica, do we want to go on to questions before we go to the close?
Yeah, let's tackle some questions. I am not seeing any in the chat at the moment that have not been answered, so we can move on to the Q&A. So the first one is from Jimmy Duffner. Pueblo has 4 golf courses. Is this a good use of land and water? As we know, water limits housing construction.
Okay, well, I mean, I think recreational amenities are an incredibly important part of any community. I know that a lot of golf courses, I think they use gray water to actually water the courses. And I do know that many golf courses actually serve as open space in kind of a dual capacity and allow a lot of recharge into the ground as opposed to hard finish surfaces, which tend to run the water off. So I think every community decides for themselves, you know, what that balance is of recreational amenities and other features to help enhance the, you know, the satisfaction and enjoyment of their community. And I believe that's a important local decision-making process. So thank you for that question.
Great. Thank you, Eric. The next one is from an anonymous attendee, and they say, maybe unrelated, are LOMA funds still available? And if so, how much funding is available?
That is a great question. Is that Snow? Snow is on the call, I believe. Is Snow Staples on the call still?
Let me check.
There she is. Snow, go ahead if you have an answer, if you're able.
Yes, Loma funds are still available. Can you hear me? Okay.
Again,
The pool of Loma funding is always changing. So to give you an exact number, isn't really an option, but there are funding available. We are accepting applications. If you want to know if a specific program is still available that can be supported by Loma, feel free to reach out to me. I will put my email address in the chat.
fantastic. Thank you, Snow. Next one, go ahead.
The next one is from Lori Simonson. The question is, we were told that we should not expect the amount of severance tax that we budgeted for 2025. What percentage cuts should we expect to our severance tax revenue in 2025?
Okay, a great question. As I indicated before, our revenue projection has gone down precipitously based on the factors that I talked about earlier. If you want, I would suggest reaching out. Brett Hilberry handles our direct distribution program, but that money is going to be dramatically reduced based on the record high ad valorem tax credits that were issued this past year, which basically almost canceled out what we were expected to receive in severance tax. And that goes for both the program and the direct distribution, as I understand it.
Next question from Tia Cavender. And I think this one will be for our friends at CDOT. So for the CDOT Revitalization Main Street Grant Program that was just canceled for future grants, what will happen to the pending grants that have not yet been reviewed or awarded? Will those still be considered?
Thank you so much. Yes, so anything that's officially been awarded, there's no concerns there. Those projects will go forward. If you have submitted an application and haven't heard back, there is a possibility that might receive funding. We're still kind of determining how much funding is left to award if we do one final round, but there's no guarantees we'll be able to fund every project that's been applied for. But if you have already received an award, then those projects will be moving forward.
Thank you so much. And then we do have a few in the chat now. One from Shannon Haynes. She says, sorry if I missed this. Can DOLA CEO provide any information on how Governor Polis's Executive Order 2025-005 will be used in assessing housing, transportation, and energy grants?
We're going to capture that question. I've given some recent litigation. We're holding back on answering those. We will get back to you, though. We have your information, and we'll have somebody from the governor's office that will provide an answer to that question. I do thank you for the question.
Thank you. Sean Poe asks, are the funds for technical grant writing assistance for IIJA and IRA still available? I think this is a question for Tara.
That is a great question. Hold on just a second. Let me chat my colleague and get an answer.
Okay, meanwhile, are there any updates to the CDBG, that's the Community Development Block Grant Program funding at this time?
That is one that we are still tracking. I was just talking to our program manager for CDBG, and he was receiving some information from the feds. That's one of those there's a lot of questions about this fall and the upcoming budget. But we did just get a recent allocation, I believe. But let me, if we can capture your information, I will get an answer to you on that one from our program manager, if that's okay. Thank you.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah.
IIJA, IRA grant writing assistance is still available.
Great. Fantastic.
There could be some delays on applications for grants that are on hold. So it depends on what federal agency and the status of those funds, but reach out to the team. Happy to talk through that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. I'm not seeing any other questions, and any contacts and links that we have not captured in the chat will be available with all the notes and materials that we'll be sending out in a few days afterwards. With that, Eric.
Hey,
I'm
Veronica,
just trying to-
another question came into the Q&A box.
Oh, thank you for that. Nicole Schaefer asks, in past fiscal years, funding has been directed to regional transportation hubs in addition to childcare and housing initiatives. Would there still be a funding source for local transportation initiatives within the state budget, or would this only be a federally funded strategy?
Is that one for more of CDOT, or I'm unclear if they're asking about energy impact or if they're asking about CDOT funds? Could you clarify?
Nicole, do you mind clarifying? And if you would like, we can unmute you as well.
Hi,
And Nicole, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
thank you. In the past, we have really looked at some of the initiatives that came through Department of Local Affairs as kind of this juxtaposition between housing, regional transportation, and childcare. As we look at the state budget, it feels like that focus on local transportation hubs and regional solutions for transportation has less value in terms of the matrix scoring and has had less funding directed toward that. As I was listening to the presentation, it didn't seem like there was still that focus of providing that regional transportation hub, either from a funding perspective or from a scoring matrix. And so I was just curious if maybe I missed it and there are still funding sources locally that we could capture to help ensure that public transportation is an integral part of some of these integrated housing and childcare strategies, or if we only have the federal funding, which has traditionally been where most of the funding is available to local strategies in the state of Colorado.
Sure. No, but Nicole, that's a great question. I know that we funded a grant this last fall out of the More Housing Now initiative that was, I believe, in the Aurora area, that was targeted at a like an area that had a light rail stop, and it was directed towards like trying to enhance the transportation options. We obviously still fund a lot of road projects out of energy impact as well. So I would say I would encourage you to reach out to your regional manager for a, to my knowledge, we've had no programmatic changes. I think we try to fund what is coming forward from our communities and what their priorities are, and try to be respectful of that and see where we can direct those funds. So, but I would say talk to your regional manager, and I see Emily's hand is up, so I'm gonna get to her as well. So thanks for the question. Go ahead, Emily.
Thanks. I also wanted to note that, the Revitalizing Main Streets program was eliminated, but the Multimodal Options Fund does have a continuous funding source moving forward. So that is one, continuous pot of funding for, building these kind of transportation trans-oriented development hubs. And then also last year we passed SB 24230, which was a production fee on oil and gas that goes to the Clean Transit Enterprise, and that's a significant amount of funding for local transit agencies and operations. So that is one spot where the state legislature has allocated a significant amount of money in the past few years for public transportation. But just wanted to highlight that nothing was changed in regards to that, and we just actually approved a formula in terms of distribution for that funding.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Okay, are there any other questions in the queue?
Eric, there is one more just confirming about the Defense Council and First Appearance Program. We know that it is not funded for 2026. Is that going away completely?
That is a great question. And I think my answer is, I don't know. I know the initial intent this year was to discontinue the program, but in the last minute, the Joint Budget Committee decided to not, they took the money for the year, but they did not remove the program from statute. So it's still there. So I think right now it's in kind of a holding pattern. I will tell you, I mean, I think what we're hearing is that next year's budget year is going to be just as hard, if not worse than this one. I hate to keep bringing bad news, but it's going to be another hard budget year next year. But I think the program is still viable. It'll just have no funding for the next fiscal year. So I think the best case scenario is that it's still here. It's not funded for this year, but it does still exist in statute, and we do still have staff assigned to that. So
Thank you so much, Eric. I think this is it for questions, so you could go ahead and close this out.
great. Thank you so much, Veronica. I want to thank all of our speakers and participants for joining us today. There was a lot of information that came at you. We'll be pushing out the PowerPoints and look for there'll be a follow-up email with all of the meeting recording and the materials and the notes and the links. So keep an eye out for that. Our next call will be on July 16th. And stay tuned. We'll be issuing some topic announcements in the coming weeks. I do want to thank you all again. Stay safe. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we will look forward to seeing you down the road. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric.